Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to FM23 Newton Heath, episode 40. It's match day. We are ready to kick off the League 2 season in just a moment. First off, let's check in on the youth teams and see what we have going into the season. And our under 21s, which was just established last season, played a handful of friendlies. They have a league this year. So, with that, there is some meaningful competition for our reserves, and even though it is an under 21s, they permit up to 5 outfield players over the age of 21. We have 7 out of the 11 that are here over the age of 21. A lot of those, certainly not all though, with a couple guys in their 30s, a lot of those are young 20-something reserves that are very close to first team. I mean, we've got half a dozen guys here that are absolutely capable of contributing to the first team, sitting on 2.5 stars. One of those was a starter last year. 2 of those were key backups a year ago. Another 2 key backups. The lower reaches and the worst of these guys are, 2-star ratings. Could, step in a pinch in an injury type scenario. So overall, no concerns about the under 21s, and with 5 of 7 capable of playing in each of those matches, 9 of these 11 guys can feature on a regular basis in the reserves league. And that's obviously not a full roster by any stretch. A lot of amateurs stepping up to fill that out, which means they wouldn't be terribly competitive, I would think. Or maybe they'll get some U18s sucked up in there with them. Or I'll throw in the occasional first team reserve who's not getting the time, put them with the U21s. But of course, many of those guys are going to have the same issue of probably already being a bit too old. But from no roster at all to something like that is a great step in the right direction. And our under 18s, we have just 3 guys who are coming in at too old. And we're allowed to play 2 of them. But goalkeepers also add a tolerance. And one of those 3 not only is one of those goalkeepers, which means we're still within the tolerance, but one of those guys, Mario Clark, is actually out on loan anyway. So Jakubowskis is kind of the best young prospect that we have, and he is a signing, not one of our intake guys, but we do have some prospects coming out of that most recent intake. In fact, the most recent intake, the guys we picked up from there, are definitely better than the ones that we had from the previous year that we hung on to, as those guys are already becoming quite redundant. So our U18s is a long way from being useful to us, but we're getting closer to it actually supplying us something useful at the first squad level, at the first team level. And that would be huge because that's the purpose of it, and we just haven't been in position to make use of it. But we've made some progress, and we're starting to get better looking intakes, just not quite there. There's 1 or 2 key areas that are still holding us back from getting the kind of players that you would expect. Now, sadly, both of the 2 players that I had pending ended up signing with someone else, so the roster has remained the same, unchanged, as we enter our first match of the season. But I'm excited by, even though we didn't get drastically better or anything, I'm excited by the squad depth that we have that we didn't have previously, as we've gotten a lot of good young prospects that have the ability to very quickly, very rapidly overtake their senior counterparts. But I'm not going to simply just throw them all into the first 11, having not gelled with each other, not having experience, not knowing the system terribly well as of yet, as they've pretty much been with us for only about a month. I'm going to introduce them a player or 2 at a time so that we don't sacrifice some early games in the season. We need to go out and get a few results to avoid the relegation zone, and then as the season goes on, kind of one by one, we can introduce those players and see if they can step in, take over, and ultimately make us better. And of course, I'll keep my eye out on scouting as time goes, as well as hopefully once we establish ourselves in League Two a little bit and don't suddenly appear to be a relegation favorite, I think more likely at that point League Two quality players are going to step up. And we're starting to get some proper graphics as we are now in League Two. It's that first home match, so we are starting at home against Doncaster. And Doncaster is, well, they're slated to be right about where we are in the league. Nice view of the table here, as only one match, the early morning match, has taken place in the league thus far, as it is opening day of the season. Let's see how the team performs. Now up a level. Of course, we didn't... Oh, okay, we did give the call for a second. That whistle seemed a little delayed. Maybe he was thinking about the potential of playing the advantage there, but there was definitely no advantage. So for us, it's still largely the same squad that we had. 7 of 11 starters return. 4 new starters in place, which is more than kind of what I thought or expected it to be as Ford. And he's got the opening goal of the season. Yes, what a start. What a start. Oh, beautiful. Beautiful play there. Smallwood turns. He's got a little space just over the top. Ford on the back shoulder. And then he just chips the keeper right at the end. His keeper goes low, dives, tries to take the low ground away. Ford able to go high over him. Really difficult play there. Tight call, but it's the correct call. And the first shot of the season is a goal for us. So we've already broken that one. We will not get skunked this year. Of course, I don't think we're necessarily going to be facing a relegation battle as they feared. Remember, preview-wise, we were slated for 23rd of 24, but with the changes, with the minor upgrades, we now find ourselves as a mid-table team in the predictions, and Doncaster is right there in the mid-table as well. So in terms of placement in the league, this would be a pretty important 3 points for us. So Collier is our lone man, down from Manchester United, and he's getting the start. He's not going to start every game. We're going to give him plenty of starts to keep the Manchester side happy. He is just a slight upgrade from Sarcevic. The main reason to bring him in is that Whitehall as backup was weak. We only had 2 significant options at defensive mid. He gives us now 3. We don't have to rely on Whitehall anymore, and he's a definite upgrade from there. But as Sarcevic is squad level player and he is seen as starter, he's going to get more goes, but they're very, very similar players in terms of quality. So no real change, just a different face, and one that's going to have to, get blooded in just a little bit. Now, Muir is a definite upgrade from Tunnicliffe. And then, of course, like I was talking about last episode, as Ford, he's going to get another chance, and it's in off the post. He's already got a brace in the season opener, and we have barely played 20 minutes. Whew. Powell, minor upgrade, gets the assist on that one. Good first touch from Ford, and I think the keeper might have gotten a piece of that. I think it might have kind of skipped up off the shoulder a little bit, but the deflection's so minor, it didn't put it in. It certainly wasn't own goal, but it didn't redirect it enough to put it out as Ford. Looking for the hat trick. 2 minutes later, that one is deflected out for the corner kick. And Ambiobi is the new man on that. Now he is the fairly solid upgrade for us and the only veteran player that we ended up signing. I let all of the others go. So we signed one older player to help kind of raise the profile of the club. He's going to come in as a regular starter, but that front line of 3 that then fell off now has 4 capable guys of rotating in quite easily. We've got a very good, almost identical player for Ford, almost identical profile and even younger to back him up now, and we don't need to worry about Ollie Palmer and the drop-off, the inconsistency that Palmer gave us last season, where 1 month he scored 6-7 goals. The entire season he scored about 9. So he had maybe 2 goals the whole rest of the season. He had one little stretch where he just caught fire, and then that ended up being it. So this roster outside of Muir being a very good upgrade, because Wilson was the only real strong player in the back. Pike was pretty good, but Wilson was the only strong defensive player that we had. Muir is equal to Wilson. So we now have a pair of center backs instead of just the one. We still have Pike, who, like I said, is pretty good, but not far from Wilson's level. And now with Powell, it's a definite upgrade, though minor, to either Brooks or Donacien. And then, of course, like I said, it puts those two into the reserve role. And here's the big thing about that, right? 4 starters have replaced. 3 of them are sitting on the bench today. So we haven't seen some massive overhaul of the club or anything along those lines. Those guys are still there. They're still quality. We just found a few faces that are minor upgrades to them. But like I said, there's a lot of other faces that are right there on that edge, fairly equivalent, but with a lot more potential and a bit younger than some of these guys. So with time we'll see that change over. Great start, great first half. Doncaster haven't even had a shot. Have not registered a single shot. 0 XG. We've had 12. Tanner finds Amiobi over the top for Ford, but that one is intercepted. Tanner finds Smallwood. Lapalo by. If the scoreline holds, we will start to introduce some guys. Not just scoreline, realistically, if the form holds, we'll start to change things up. If this is suddenly all Doncaster, as Amiobi caught offside there, very close as he was trying to retreat back and then hold his position as the defense continued to push up that little bit more, ended up pushing him just offside before that ball was played. That looked offside, but it's not. It's in the back of the net. Definitely no flag. And just like that, out of nowhere, first attempt. Let's see this run. Yeah, no, he's good. John Jules did the same thing that Ford did on the previous play. The incoming ball came from a slightly different angle here, but more or less, we're looking at the same sequence. He's on the back shoulder, just reading that this ball is going to be coming in, and makes the move. So, like I said, if the form and score hold, then we'll start to see those changes. Amiobi, great turn there, great chance, but the defense recovers very quickly at a pace we're not used to seeing. Get back in time to block that one. Now, either way, we do need to start thinking about changes, but we've played 20 minutes. We've exceeded 20 minutes of the half anyway, and they've only registered that single shot. So the scoreline got closer. The form really didn't. I mean, they've literally made one play come up out of nowhere. How Sarcevic is in when I didn't do any substitution here. I do have scenario set for the game is playing out my scenarios while I'm managing and not just when I'm doing the instant results. That's a silly one, but okay. Doy is on for Wilson, getting his debut. Ford onside, the right back played him on, and then the flag gets raised. Right back played him onside. That flag should not have raised. He was on. Anyway, Sarcevic drops from Muir. It was close. If he was off by an inch. Muir. Smallwood. Sarcevic over the top for Ola. Ola cuts back. Powell. Return ball. Not a very good return ball. Sarcevic, good job retreating to get to that one. Powell over the top. Again, nobody there. Not on the same page. New player trying to fit the system. Ford turns. Take it out of the box. That's a definite penalty. Though it says he was diving. Ford confident down the middle. And it's 3-1. He opens the season with a hat trick. What a start. Was it a dive? Come on. FM, we don't know. Commentator at the bottom claimed it was surely a dive. But we are the no reputation team, so they are going to say that about us all the time. Pike. Lapala by. Crosses. Ola can't get on the end of it, but Powell, great job getting in there, and that's deflected and in! That was supposed to be a low cross. But that ball takes a deflection and ends up going in. That ball touched a defender, touched the keeper. Yeah, there's that deflection off the hip of the keeper. And it's in. It's 4-1, and that seals the deal, but we've already used our subs. Are we on a 3-sub limit here, or do we have a 4-sub limit? Let's see what... Nope, there are no substitutions remaining. That confirms that one. And I'm rather annoyed that the game has dictated on its own. As Ford! Ooh, chance for 4. Keeper just gets a hip on that one, this time pushing it out wide instead of... it's still managing to go in the back of the net. How did he save that one? Ford. That ball was practically touching the netting at the very back of the net before that keeper made that dive. I'm exaggerating, but that thing was on the line. They are making my changes. Seemingly, they haven't made this one. I guess it's because we're up by so much and we want to remain balanced. There should be some time wasting in my instructions. Let's see if that's actually the case. Is it? Yes. Light time wasting. So I worked really hard on instructions, generic instructions based on how the game is going. I thought it would apply to the instant results. It applied to me managing the side as well. So the substitutions happened on their own. Those changes in the background happened on their own, and we opened the season with a 4-1 victory, giving up just 2 shots, accumulating 23 attempts on goal ourselves, 13 on target with 4 in the back of the net, 3 from open play, 1 from the penalty spot, a hat trick from Shaq Ford. Brilliant start to the season, and we look very capable of playing at this level. The one noticeable thing for me was that at one phase, one little piece there, Ameobi had turned. Now, he's not a guy with a ton of pace, but unlike all those other older players I opted not to sign, Ameobi still has decent pace, even though he's in his 30s. Decent pace, though. 11, 12-ish. Enough to he could still get up and run and not be a liability out there pace-wise, but definitely not fast. But anyway, he makes that turn, makes that brilliant turn. He's in behind the defense, and the defense recovered very quickly. That, for me, was the first sign of, hey, guys, we're playing at a higher level now. We didn't see things like that in the past. I mean, you beat the D like that, you're one-on-one with the keeper, you're getting your shot. That was the first instance I've seen of a team actually recover and get a block in. The continued talks about a takeover, they're still there. They're still persisting, and it seems to be picking up a head of steam. We had just a single negative Ratcliffe going, no, nothing's happening statement, just once. And maybe that was kind of the first offer being not good enough and it's not happening, and maybe turning that down. Since then, though, talks seem to persist, and this message suggests that we might be getting a little bit closer, because it seems to be a little more descriptive regarding what may occur, which is saying that with one or more interested groups believed to be preparing offers. A club source indicated that while no formal bids have been made, Chairperson Jim Ratcliffe would be willing to entertain the proposition. So one or more groups preparing offers. So it seems like it's nearing like that discussion stage, the possibility, the takeover could be on the way. And like I said, depending on how that goes, it could change, not everything, but it could change things substantially. It's not going to change everything because we have our stadium, we fill it out. But what's the new owners going to do? Are they going to throw us into a new stadium right away, sell the stadium, cash in, downgrade us? That hurts the finances. Are they going to go the other way and come in with a ton of money and look to build us up? Are they going to deny each and every request for everything because they're stingy and they want the profit for themselves? I mean, it really could change how the playthrough goes. So we'll keep a close eye on this one as we continue forward on this path. And let's push forward a handful of games and see how the team does here in the early season. As for expectations this year, avoid relegation is what they expect for us to do in League Two. But in the FA Cup, Carabao Cup, and St. John's Trophy, be competitive. As in, don't get blown out, but you're probably going to lose your first match. Our first match for the Carabao Cup, in between our first and second match in the league, is a home match against Huddersfield of the championship, meaning they're the heavy favorites. So for the second match with a championship side and no expectations, they expect us to lose anyway, and I'm not worried about this competition. I mean, let's be real. We just want to kind of get through the league, maybe have a tiny FA Cup run, but of course, being in League 2 now, we enter the competition a bit later than we did before. What I really want to get out of this match is some tactical familiarity. The new guys, those 4 that started the last match, they're starting again today, and then I've largely swapped out the veterans for other new faces. So we've got a lot of new faces or a couple veterans kind of out of position. So like Donasian is now a left back or right back. We're going to give him the start on the right-hand side today, so we're familiar playing on that side. Sarcevic getting the start over Smallwood because I want to get that rotation going of those 3, but I want Collier to familiarize himself a bit more with the squad. Ola playing on the right instead of the left, not as familiar, so he drops off his tactical familiarity. Otherwise, it's massive squad rotation, which it's good for the match load. It's good for building some tactical familiarity, letting them gel a little bit as a team. It's not going to be good for our result. Good news, we only lost 1-0 to a championship team with significant squad rotation. 5 shots to their 7, 47% possession. We didn't get blown out. Took a 78th minute goal to knock us out of the competition. That's good stuff. For our second match of the league season, I'm going to go ahead and follow suit, put out the same lineup that we did, especially after we just did some really healthy squad rotation in the last match. Let's see if we can get a back-to-back result. We're going to be on the road at Bromley for this one, and even though this is technically a top of the league clash after that first match, Bromley and myself, we were the 2 teams that came away with the best goal differential and wins in our opening matches. But as we head into this one, the reality is they are on the edge as a relegation team. So can we come away with a result on the road? That's a big question. Earned a late draw, had plenty of possession, just only managed to get 1 shot on target all the way through. And our young, very, very much Shaq Ford-like Aboa Woduo, get used to how I want to pronounce that, comes away with his first goal for the side, scoring in the 81st minute after coming on for Shaq Ford at some stage in the game. And I've got my Continental C license now, as I have completed the course on that first attempt, which was one of those things that you actually do worry about slightly, because plenty of times you see coaches fail to get their licenses, and when we start with such abysmal attributes that have only developed, rather slightly, we're still a really poor individual coach. I mean, we have the determination to impact the board, and we have a couple of decent attributes that have developed, but we're still quite poor. And so there was every chance that we could have actually failed that one, but we've got it. We now have our first lowest continental level license, and we're going to have to take a look to see if our attributes have developed now as a... One of the nice things about recording yourself for content means that you can go back and look at these things. A recent check for the last episode resulted in this. We are +1 in attacking from a 7 up to an 8. Defending is also +1. Fitness is +1. Goalkeeping is unchanged, but tactically we have a +2. Technically, we are also a +2 from a 5 up to a 7. Likewise, mental has gone +2. So on the coaching side of things, that is a +9 overall. That is a big haul for us. That Continental badge has come with quite the return. Still not a good coach, as the standard of what I'm looking for are guys at 10s, 11s, and 12s, at least in a specific discipline, where our best that we can manage is 8s or 7s for any individual discipline. It's better than what I had before. But that's not it. I have picked up other points as well. Obviously, adaptability has not increased as it's still a 1. My determination has gone +1 though. So from a 14 up to a 15. That is our most important attribute for this playthrough, obviously, as you can hire the staff to do the coaching. Nobody else talks to the board but us, though. So if we're going to get our way, if we're going to convince them, and especially if we have a new board that ends up being stingy, that +1, getting that up to a 20 at some stage is going to be essential to the growth of the club. Player knowledge +2, while youngster knowledge is +1. My level of discipline has gone +3. That is a huge gain. People management +2 and motivating +1. This couldn't have been better. I mean, this is massive. We've got +9s both on the mental side and the coaching side for a total gain of +18. Now, there's a chance that not 100% of those points have come directly from the coaching badge, as we might have picked up 1 point over the last, I'd say, month from when I made that check previously. But wow. Wow, even if it's only a +17 instead of +18. I mean, regardless, over the last month, we've gained 18 points, 9 in each area. And I'm not an abysmal coach anymore. Not a good one. We're still not a good one. There's no way you can stretch that and say, hey, look at that guy. He's a good coach. No, but substantial gain in ratings is very welcome. Tranmere Rovers at home for the next match. You'd like our chances being at home against anybody, but with the squad rotation that I have, as we've had a very crowded, packed start to the season, I'm not feeling too confident about the day. We got a lot of guys on heavy match load, so I've got some squad rotation. Ford is on the bench, the new man, Aboa. I think we're going to be going with Aboa to help me with pronouncing his name a bit, but for Aboa, I mean, there's no trade-off, but we don't know how well he's going to fit in. He's got 1 goal so far, but Lapalabai out there. George Pratt is getting the start over Collier as the heavy match load is, weighing on me, but we've already picked up 2 longer-term injuries, semi-longer-term injuries. Ollie Palmer out with a concussion. He's got 2 more weeks to go before he'll be cleared, as it was a hefty concussion that he picked up in training. Sarcevic also with lower back stress fracture, seeing a specialist to get back a little bit sooner, but he's going to miss a month and a half. So Sarcevic and that rotation of 3 guys in the defensive midfield not coming together. Instead of Whitehall, I'm going to give Pratt a shot. I don't know how well he's going to do, but he's the future when Whitehall's not as well. Give him a chance. Alfie Doi also getting the start over Muir because of the heavy match load. Amiobi on the bench. It's Ola in there, but yeah, Ola's not, not that great. So I'm not sure how this team's going to necessarily perform with the 11 that have been fielded. Last year I didn't worry about it. Last season I didn't worry about it, as we were good enough to have squad rotation and still win. Wow. I'm surprised here, folks. Not only did we win, but we win by 3 goals and keep a clean sheet, and do so with Smallwood getting sent off on a second yellow. He got a yellow four minutes into the game, so just to the start of the first half, and 4 minutes into the second half, he picks up his second yellow and gets sent off. And for us, I mean, that was it. I mean, Aboa got a yellow right at the end of the game, and he, like Ford, picks up a hat trick. Yeah. So apparently I've got 2 guys now capable of playing on top, which might make sense, because unlike Palmer, who has a very different profile to Shaq Ford and systemically just didn't mesh, we tried to make that second system so that we could get those 2 side by side, And that one just didn't work out for us. I mean, we got some really bad results with that. I might even just drop it entirely now that I do have a Shaq Ford clone and a Boa getting it done. I mean, he is showing that he can seamlessly step in and do the same thing as Shaq Ford. So not only is he a carbon copy attribute wise, but there's the mental side of the game as well. And not just, that mental attributes, but there's the hidden attributes. He seems to be of the same mentality, getting the same results. So we've got two guys on top now that can be interchangeable. We can give a rest. We can rotate these guys seamlessly and get goals galore. 25-1 on the shots, 8 on target, 3 in the net, 68% possession. Whew. I think we can check off League 2 as we are not facing a relegation battle in the slightest this season. 2 home wins to open the year, 1 road draw to open the season, and some convincing performances, 3 goal wins in both of those victories. I don't feel like we're going to challenge for the league. I think we've been fortunate on the opponents through these first 3 matches, but we are clearly capable of scoring plenty of points. I think we're going to face some tougher opposition and probably lose some matches, but for now, we are comfortable in the tier, in the level, and if we can be upper mid-table, eventually that reputation is going to grow enough. Eventually, the outside world's going to look at our position, our comfort, and that reluctance to join is going to fade, and then we'll get the players we need to challenge for the title soon enough. So things are off to a good start for the season. Of course, that coaching badge is a huge coup for us. And we had a negative balance going for a bit. The off season, you don't make any money. You don't make any money for a while. And so we were seeing the deficit here through summer, and we are just now starting to, with 2 home matches, overcome the summer deficit, get to a slight positive for the year, sitting on 47.5 million. I think it's time to make our next board request. Of course, the youth recruitment one, that failed. I do feel that our reputation's going to hit a point some stage during this season that we can finally get off of the mark and get going on that one. But facilities, youth level. We're going to try to increase youth level of the facilities, as that's the other one that's on the lower side. And of course, all of that is that ticket to bringing in some good youth talent that could play for us at some stage, even if that is not until we get into the Premier League. Whenever the case may be, we don't want to be Manchester City and have one player ever come through your academy because you spend all your time breaking financial fair play rules over 100 times in 10 years and then continuously in the years since then. In fact, seemingly worse. Visually, from the outsider, it looks like their violations have been quite worse in the last years, but I understand that you set a time for your investigation, and your timeline, what you were looking at, was prior to that, and so you make that your cutoff point, even if you could just continually add and add and add and add and add violation after violation, but you only need so many to blow up the world. Or, somebody gets paid off massively and it disappears again. Like, quick thought on that one. I do recall some pretty major punishments handed out for infractions that were far less severe. But we've also seen the flip side of it. So let me just throw out a couple key examples. We've seen powerhouses in Italy get relegated for match fixing. We saw Rangers get liquidated / then bumped down 3 divisions in Scotland, and it took them a while to bounce back from that. They bounced back and they're back to their old ways. But it was a hefty penalty. It was a severe penalty, and it wasn't 3 years and they were back. If I remember, it took them about 5 to 6 years to bounce back and get back up to the highest level, and then it still took them 2 to 3 more years to get back and be competing with Celtic at the top once again, if I'm not mistaken. That's the path that I believe was taken for them. I know the 5 Manchester City fans that actually exist out there, and I know I'm exaggerating that. You have more than 5. It's okay. There might be 10 of you. I know. There's more than 10. But one thing is quite clear. They are the least supported major club, period. Chelsea have fans. As much as they are breaking the same rules with probably the same frequency and need to be dealt with as well. As much as PSG, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Juventus are all breaking the same rule set again and again, there is an absolute massive clear divide between what City and Chelsea are doing and what the other big players are doing. Newcastle, for example, are building and becoming a 7th power team in the Premier League. But what they are doing clearly in terms of player acquisition, coach acquisition, the changes that they are making are clearly staying within financial fair play rules. Manchester United, for all the money that they've spent, they are following financial fair play. Their income's insane. City has embellished their income, and I believe it was something like 50 of the 130 violations were lying about their income, lying about the money that they were bringing in, embellishing the money that they were bringing in to try to claim that they were in FFP when they weren't. And UEFA called them out for it in 2018, but they didn't have an airtight case. And it seemed at the time, and even now, and more so now than before, that somebody got a huge payday to make it go away. It didn't get lawyered away. It disappeared. And then the violations, the egregious follow-up to that 2018 disappearing of the case, because they weren't the only team that was getting punished at the time, but all of them suddenly just walked away without punishment. And then after that, they went from trying to just fake their way through playing by the rules to just straight up like, F you, we're going to go spend absurd amounts of money on Neymar and Mbappe and pay massive exorbitant fees and salaries for, the Ronaldos and the Messis and the Pogbas of the world. I mean, other clubs were having to do the same thing, but they were just doing it on much smaller scales. And City, with their 6 satellite clubs and storing guys, like, it was quite clear that they were doing things differently than everybody else. But then the words coming out that, what they were being paid versus what they were being paid being two things that were clearly different. What they were being paid on paper versus what they were actually receiving. Oh, so you're saying that City weren't only like third in salary, that actually they're first in salary by quite some margin, and that all these guys that they were bringing in, what they were putting down on paper was not what the reality was. And then things start to make sense. And the rapid rise from a yo-yo team to a mega team. Duh. I mean, come on. We all saw it. Just nothing was being done about it. And then when they tried to do something, it just disappeared. So they take 4 years to really get airtight on their case. And then the Premier League has their go instead of UEFA. And I think they're trying to do it right. I think they are trying to not make this go away. I saw a comment. I wish I knew off the top of my head who it was, but somebody on Twitter made the absolute perfect analysis of what's going to happen. Either the hammer's going to be brought down and they're going to be punished severely. What happened with Rangers, 3 divisions, is going to be nothing compared to this. I mean, we're talking about 100 plus, well over 100 violations. Massive, massive violations. No regard for the rules. That's not a 15-point deduction. That's not a fine. Fine's nothing. Oh, believe me, there's going to be a fine because the 4-year investigation, that shit's expensive. The lawyers that they're going to have to fight this out with, that's expensive. There's going to be a fine. The fine is going to pay for all of that. Expenses. That's the fine. But the money means nothing to the ownership. Points deduction does nothing. But it's not even a slap on the wrist. It's like the slap on the wrist from 2,000 miles away. Like, it's the metaphorical, we're on a Zoom call with each other and whoo, 15-point deduction is nothing to them. It doesn't drop them out of Champions League most seasons. It may not even take a title away from them. They're a super team for a reason. They brought in the best manager, and that is a very key reason. Manchester United won for a lot of years in a lot of ways. Not necessarily because of the players that they had there. It helped. But a lot of those guys were developed in-house as youths. It was internal development. It was Sir Alex Ferguson that made that happen. Now, he had strong contenders in other teams. Arsene Wenger, great manager. There was other guys around that put up a challenge, that put up a fight, and United didn't win the title every year. They didn't have the dominance that City has right now. And that's because what United did was legit. They built a legit powerhouse that everybody else hated because they were the powerhouse, but they did it legitimately. They did it internally. These days, man, it's just throwing money left and right at the problem. And others, they do the same thing. But they do it at a scale that is nothing compared to what City or Chelsea do. And so keeping up with that is very hard. But the little internal implosions that like Chelsea have gone through, the turmoil there has made it that they have been inconsistent. City have been much more consistent, and it's the manager side. Chelsea burn through managers left and right, and that is why they don't have the consistency, and they have the implosion, and they have only pulled 2-3 titles in their damn near 20 years of doing this. City's been doing it for less long, only since 2008, and yet they have won a lot more. And that's a Guardiola effect. It is. But quietly, the finances behind the scenes have been significantly, possibly anyway, worse than Chelsea up until this year and the spending that Chelsea has done, and that they're going to come down on them. But of course, Chelsea feel like they have themselves a loophole, that they've skirted financial fair play legally. They haven't. I mean, they haven't. You can't just ignore the years of spending, which is all part of what's supposed to be on the books, and they ignore it entirely. And they are looking only at the spending of this year and no previous years. And you have to take those previous years into account. No matter who the ownership was then versus now, it still counts. It's still that club. It's still that roster. And that roster plus this roster, even with their supposed loophole, is violating the rules as well. So they're going to get caught eventually. How many years is it going to take? It's taken a decade and a half to finally come down on City. But anyway, as I wrap this episode up, 2 things. The outcome is going one of 2 ways. Either, and this was that comment that I was talking about, either you're going to see the case suddenly dropped with no real punishment. some sort of minor fine, 1 year of transfer bans, maybe 1 year banned from European competition, really, really minor stuff that's not going to have any long-term impact on Manchester City. And if that's the one that happens, when that happens, you're going to magically see a new Premier League sponsor emerge with a huge sum of money headed the Premier League's way, with some sort of satellite random company, your Rich Energy type company that doesn't really exist, some sort of cryptocurrency type thing or betting company with an absurd amount of money going to the Premier League that isn't really a company. Or the alternative is they actually really bring the hammer down on them. And what they have done is severe to the point that they protect, for those who haven't really heard the detail of how this case is going to be tried, 3 people are going to be selected. They're going to hear the case. They're going to hear both sides of the case. It's going to be presented to them, and they will rule. Assuming that the Premier League wins that case, you're going to see an appeal that will see 3 more individuals from that same pool selected, and these are from the Premier League. You're going to see 3 more individuals brought forth and hear the same case or hear the appeal to the case, and then you'll get your final determination, as they can't repeat appeal again and again. Those 6 individuals, the first 3 and then the second 3, and realistically the entire pool that those individuals are going to be pulled from, it's supposed to be random. Protecting those individuals and keeping them away from people secretly lining their pockets in the hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars that they could suddenly have applied to their pockets. Protecting them is the key to not having the case suddenly disappear, and those satellite companies pumping a new sponsorship deal to the Premier League. But if you do protect them, and it's obvious that they'll be found guilty, that the whole Manchester City fan base going, oh, now it's guilty till proven innocent, you don't get 140 charges and be wrong on all 140. Is it possible that they're wrong on a few? Oh, hell yeah. But you don't build a case for 4.5 years to be wrong. The evidence is there. The evidence is clear. They are guilty. They are totally guilty of at least 98% of them, if not 100% slam dunk, because you don't spend that long building the case. There isn't that much evidence to make this all happen and not do something. This is major. This is the biggest case in the history of sports. Period. And it's the most consequential. You don't spend that long building that case if it isn't airtight. And now the only thing is stopping the corruption from once again snowballing it, obstructing it. If this fails, sport's potentially ruined, and it's never going to be fair game. But if this succeeds, the punishment can and must be the most severe punishment ever handed out. Dissolution of Manchester City is not enough. It doesn't work. It's not the answer. You don't just, you're fired. No, it has to be the most severe punishment, but with still existing that can possibly be. And if they choose to exist, if they choose to dissolve themselves out of protest, frustration, go buy another club instead type thing, doesn't mean anything. Look what just happened with Chelsea. Abramovich breaks all the rules. Their club breaks all the rules. The new owners continue to break the rules. it changed nothing. It changed absolutely nothing. They must face severe relegation. They're not just going to be a championship side. That doesn't do it either. They bounce back in 1 year and they're right back in European competition the following year because why? They're going to just continue throwing money at the problem. They might lose a few players, but they'll continue to, under the table, pay off other guys if they're not properly punished, if they're not properly regulated. They, at the very least, need to be dropping down, I would say, all the way to the National League. You put them out of the league entirely. But League One, League Two, even that would at least send a message. And it's got to be, 10-year ban from European competition, or, it's got to be something crazy intense to have any chance of actually putting a stop to this. Holy crap, I've just blown this episode up from, hey, I got 2 minutes to wrap this thing up, to I just talked for another 15-20 minutes. I'm sorry about that, but if you're still here, let me know in the comments below what you think of this topic. Am I being too harsh? Am I not being harsh enough? Is it sound just about right? Where do you stand on it? Are you on the other side of the spectrum? Do you think that this is all getting blown out of proportion? That it's nothing? It's a big topic. It's a big topic. Well, let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm the Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there, and bye for now.